All right. Is everybody ready for the final presentation of day one? Yeah. Woo. All right. How about a warm welcome for our next presenter, Eric Loyd.
Thank you. My name is Eric Loyd. I'm the founder and CEO of Bitnetics Incorporated. Real quick, a little bit about myself and Bitnetics. We are a predominantly voice over IP technology company, provide both custom phone solutions for business to business, as well as VoIP services. We also provide IT and network consulting. I've worked for 25 years in IT at places like Eastman Kodak, which we'll talk about today, Frontier Communications, which is the main telephone company in Rochester, New York, which is where I'm from, and Global Crossing, which some of you may have heard of. We started our 7th year in this past July, so I'm happy about that. And we were a 2012 Great Awards finalist in the communications technology field for a main networking group in Rochester. We use Nagios to monitor our equipment. We use Nagios to monitor our voice over IP platform, and we use it to monitor our clients' equipment. We've been doing this at Kodak since 2004 when I started there as a contractor. So briefly, a quick rundown of the history of Nagios at Eastman Kodak. Real quick, how many people have actually heard of Eastman Kodak, the company formerly known as the little yellow box before they go bankrupt? So this is a non-confidential presentation, so you won't get any machine names or anything like that that you can go try to find on the network, hopefully. If you do, you didn't hear it from me. So, come on, little button, do your thing. My little button's not working. There we go. So in 2004 is when we moved to a new platform. So prior to 2004, they were running with machines located in Rochester, New York, which is where the corporate headquarters are for Kodak. They have a collection, or had a collection of public Apache servers, back-end application servers, reverse proxy servers, some database machines, and production support boxes. And I want to clarify something. We're talking about the Kodak.com platform, which is not managing all of Kodak's IT infrastructure. This is just managing the website that is Kodak.com and the various applications, sitelets, and services that website provides, both to consumers as well as to the business-to-business world that Kodak works in. At one time, Kodak was a very large company, especially in the Rochester area. They were the #1 employer, 90 plus some odd thousand people that they had working there, a couple $1 billion a year in revenue, a lot of consumer film. Anybody remember film? They transitioned to a digital company, and a few years later, which is now about a year ago, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. In 2004, they hired a few people, including myself as contractors, to move this platform to an undisclosed third-party data center located somewhere on the eastern seaboard. So we moved these machines from Rochester, which meant we had to incorporate the firewalls to get traffic from development boxes that were still in the Rochester area out to this new facility and back. We had to deal now with bandwidth requirements that were being provided by a third party, make sure that we weren't going above our limits. We needed to make sure, perhaps most importantly, that this was done with minimal user impact, so that when you went to sleep on Friday night and you logged off your Kodak.com shopping cart, that when you logged in Monday morning, it was still there waiting for you to buy things. Because at the time, consumer marketing was the department that owned the Kodak.com website. They thought of it as an arm of their marketing department, and in the consumer division, that's how they sold film, printers, digital cameras, whatever those things are, and some other things. A lot of this was driven through the marketing department, through the website. So there needed to be basically a flip the switch, go live type thing, and we actually managed to accomplish that. So I'm very proud we did this in about 3 months. And what the website did at the time, to give you an idea of kind of how big this was, is, of course, there's consumer store and product information. There's the business-to-business portal, wholesaler purchasing, so Walmart would buy all of their one-time use cameras through the website. There's this thing called Picture of the Day where you can take a picture, submit it through the website, have it show up on a big marquee display in Times Square, which is really kind of neat because you can go to New York City and take a picture of yourself standing in front of your picture. Professional photo labs do calibrations at least once a week. They'd send those strips back through the website. You can kind of read this. Phone home stuff from the various software products and printers and camera docks and things that would tell Kodak how many pieces of paper you'd printed so they knew when to start marketing you ink, for instance. A host of other things which really don't matter. There were basically dozens of different ways that Kodak used the website to communicate with its customers as well as to get information back from these various pieces of equipment that are out there. At the time, there was no monitoring for this software or for this system when it was moved. So they needed something. And the idea was, well, let's do something quick, something easy, and especially cheap. So why Nagios? Well, unfortunately, with no centralized monitoring software in place at that time at Kodak, it meant that there was nothing to compete with from a business process or a departmental standpoint. You didn't have to ask the IT people. Remember, we're marketing people at this point. We don't have to ask the IT people, can we run Nagios? Because they don't have anything that they can deploy, so we could put out whatever it was that we wanted. Since there wasn't anything already there, it also meant we had to start with ground zero, a green field, which pluses and minuses to that. The cost was an obvious factor. There is none, except for people to do the work, and since they already had predominantly a contractor workforce in place and about 8 full-time staff that managed the website and its servers and services, the human cost was already in place, basically. The framework to provide Nagios, or the framework that Nagios had to work in was that it needed to work with these now complex firewall rules that were in place between Rochester and the remote locations. We did not have the ability to install agents on the remote machines, and I suppose this would be a good point to mention that this was all Solaris-based. There's no Windows, there's no Linux at this point. This is all Solaris 2. I don't remember what, something ancient, 8 maybe. And the development platform is located in Rochester still. The production platform and a staging environment is at this other location. So there ended up actually being 2 instances of Nagios that were deployed. In order to get through these firewalls, it was decided that anything that we could monitor that didn't require us to actually be on the remote machine to get that information was a good way to do it. So a lot of information that we could obtain through HTTP requests by either looking at web pages or delving into code that were installed in the applications that got deployed that would tell us things about what that application was doing internally, memory usage and things like that. SSH was a big tool for us because it allowed us to actually, and we'll get into this later, wrap our modules, our Nagios modules, into SSH tunnels, which we could then execute on the remote hosts. They could execute local arbitrary code, return the results back, and everything could be managed from a local Nagios box using active checks, no passive checks. Again, this is 2004, so this is pre-Core versus XI kind of thing. So this is Nagios. I think when I started, this was Nagios 1.9, if I remember right. They since upgraded to 2.4 or 5, and only in this past summer moved to 3.4. It was very important to have these custom checks that you can only get with Nagios, really, with the modules that you can install yourself. Because of the complex nature of the applications that Kodak ran, the checks weren't simply, is the machine up, is, how much memory is being used. So actually we were delving into order processing transaction chains within the consumer and business websites to try to determine what it looks like from a user's perspective as well. So we needed to be able to do these custom checks. In fact, with very few exceptions, even to this day, every module that is being run by the Kodak Nagios that's monitoring this platform today is a custom module that was written mostly by me at this point. So obviously there's some problems in getting there, and the biggest one is what the network looks like. So on the left-hand side in green is sort of the production environment. The right-hand side in yellow is a staging environment, which is a pared-down version of production, but every piece of code, every piece of content had to go through staging in order to get out to production. Let's hope that that actually was followed. So there were load balancers that existed on public IPs There's a firewall that separates that from now Kodak's public IP space, where there's sort of